This is the most important video I'm going to make in this series and about gambling in general. Roulette strategy is very important and it never gets talked about. People say really weird things like this.
Okay, so Baccarat is best odds you'll get in a casino.
That is not remotely true at all. That is absurd because the game Roulette exists where you can control the odds and make them far better than 50%. Now, you probably kind of understand how you can do this, but you just never thought about it in the right way. Or your gambling addiction has kind of taken over you, and you are just concerned about getting a big dopamine rush and rushing to a quick win. Now, I'm suggesting that you implement some strategy, you have a little bit of patience, and you consider what I'm about to tell you. Now, first of all, I'm somebody who really is just a big math geek. And I think a problem that people have is either they're a math geek and they look too close at the statistics and they don't consider what it actually is to be a gambler, making different bet sizes and overcoming yourself and playing the games properly. They just aren't a gambler, so they aren't able to tie these things together, both the math side and the strategy side, like the game theory side. It just doesn't work as well as it should when you only look at the statistics. So let's go through as to how exactly you give yourself better odds in roulette. Physical casino, it's crowded. I don't like it at all. Especially my local casino. We only have one roulette table. I've only played at it once. I made 2 bets and it was just so awkward. I hated it. But online, I've played a lot of roulette because it has controlled odds. You can do so much. Now, which roulette wheel you choose is very important. There are ones with double zeros. Avoid those. This is how you win. This is how you get better than 50% off. Now, it looks like it's not that much because the cutoff point would be right here, right down the middle. So that little bit, though, makes a huge difference. And you can even extend this beyond to where you're covering even more of the numbers, which we'll go over. So this covers 2/3 of the board, which gives you about a 65% chance to win on a single zero board wheel, which is what you want to be playing on. Double zero just makes no sense. Do not do double zero. Now, let's say you start with $200 in your balance. That's what you're going to gamble with. That's what you're going to risk. Let's say you put 100 on 1/3 and 100 on another third. Say that hits. That will give you 300. So you started at 200. Now you're at 300. Now you want to bet that again. And keep in mind the reason why you want to do this, even though you could hit a number that you're not on. Think about the game Baccarat or Blackjack or putting all of your money on black or red, 50-50 odd, which ain't bad, but you're risking a lot and there's like a 50-50 chance you just lose. That's not your best bet. This is your best bet. Now, yeah, you're going to get less of a dopamine spike because you're not just doubling your money instantly. But what is wrong with you if that's the case? Like you are way too deep in your gambling addiction if you just care about getting the maximum dopamine spike. At which point you don't really care if you win or lose. What I'm going over here is when you do really want to win. When winning like kind of matters to you, which it probably should if you're gambling under any circumstances. So let's talk about winning and not about the maximum dopamine spike. And I've done it. I've put $3,100. The biggest single bet I've ever made in my life was putting it on black. And it hit. And that was exciting. That was one of the most exciting gambling experiences I've ever had. But this strategy is better and more winning in the long run. Let's say you put 100 on these 2 different spots, it hits. Now you're at 300 in your balance, and you split that up and you bet again. You bet on the same 2/3 of the board, but now you put 150 on each spot, and it hits again, which is most likely to hit again. Well, now you're at $450. You started at 200. Now you're at 450. So you've more than doubled. Just having like another minute of patience, being able to wait 1 minute to actually make a better bet. Now you're at more than double. Does that not sound better? 450 instead of 400? Like, yeah, you got to 400 on one bet as opposed to getting to 450 on two bets. But are we trying to win, or are we just going for like the quickest possible dopamine rush? Yeah, if you put your 200 on black, it hits. Then you put your 400 on black and it hits. Yeah, now you're at 800. What's most likely to happen to you if you do that is that you actually lose all of it. So now you're at 0 is the most likely outcome you have. Because that's how roulette works. You control the odds of the bet. And a lot of people, if you go to a physical casino in particular, but you'll hear this amongst gamblers, and it's very sad and pathetic. And this has happened to me several times. Anytime I've gone to a physical casino and played blackjack, I've heard the dealer say this, and no one's ever questioned it. Is, oh, well, you know, these tables are the best odds in the house. Don't play slots. This casino makes 80% of its money off of slot players. They don't know what they're doing. No, that is dead wrong. False. You couldn't be more wrong. First of all, at my local casino, there's about like 6 blackjack tables and over 200 slot machines, some of which the minimum bet is $5. So you got, at any time, you've got people making 3 separate $10 bets on a slot machine non-stop all day. Whereas like the blackjack tables ain't even open all day. Are you out of your mind? I've seen somebody at my local casino, which isn't even a big casino, literally betting $100 a spin on 2 separate machines. This lady looked like she was holding on to life. So old, she could barely move, and she just bet. It's like she wasn't looking at either machine, but just $100 a spin, $100 a spin, $100, negative 200, negative 200, negative 200, negative 200. So yeah, of course they make most of their money off of slots. But this might shock you. This might astound you. 99% of gamblers have better odds playing a slot machine than playing blackjack. And I made a video about blackjack, which I'll leave in the end screen. People play blackjack horribly wrong. They go all in without having enough money to double or split. They make dumb decisions. They take what would be a potentially 49% chance. If you follow my blackjack strategy, you have probably like a 49% chance to win. If you follow the book, you'll have like 47, nearly 48% chance to win. But most people, even people who religiously follow the strategy book, which is stupid, they'll preach the gospel of the blackjack book, the things you're supposed to do, but they'll break those exact rules. And especially if you get tilted, oh my God, are you more likely to make a dramatic error in blackjack? And it's just incorrect. People don't play blackjack correctly, and even if they do, it's not the best odds in the casino. The problem is that these dealers, these casinos, and gamblers themselves, they want to feel superior. They want to feel smart, and they're not. They're fooled. They fell for a lie. And that sucks, because there is very simple stuff here that should be obvious. What I'm showing you here, this should be super obvious, and anyone who's ever played roulette should be able to connect these dots that I'm saying. And you probably have in your mind, you've probably played roulette and made this bet or a bet like it and been like, yeah, my odds are pretty high here. Then my question to you is, why have you never called out, and why is no one else calling out these insane statements that are incorrect when people saying, oh, like blackjack's your best odds in the casino, baccarat's your best odds in the casino? Because what we just covered is, yeah, you throw 200 on a hand of baccarat, you might get to 400, you might get to 0. It's 50-50. But what I'm talking about here is simply making 2 65% bets and getting to 450. Which, yeah, if you do the stupid statistics calculation, your odds, it's not a guarantee. Nothing's a guarantee. The problem with just looking at the math and statistics, it doesn't tell the whole story. So you want to pick a single zero roulette wheel, And online roulette, it's superior, but you have to be careful because they give very little time to place your bet. So you need to strategize. You need to understand, all right, I'm going to bet this twice. I'm going to put down 100 in two different spots. If it hits, I'm going to put 150 because I want to bet again. So I have to be quick because I have to put 150 on these two spots. And then, if you want to continue after that, all right, now I'm at 450. I want to bet a third time, so I'm going to have to put 225 on each of these spots. And you have to switch the denominations of chips. So you're like kind of clicking back and forth. And they give you very little time to place a bet. So you need to be kind of locked in, dialed in, and think about what kind of money you want to get to, what size bets you're going to make. And you need to be like actively engaged. But this is a good strategy, especially if you're tilted. I call this the starter and ender strategy because I love to start a gambling session by doing this exact bet. I like to put in $200, do one of these bets. Now I'm at 300. So now I'm gambling with 200 that I deposited, and then an additional 100. That's just house money. Is how I look at it. Is I'm ahead 100. So now I can start gambling, and maybe I'll play slots. Maybe I'll play a game show or whatever the hell. Or maybe I'll run the bet 2 times, 3 times, and then boom, I have a bunch of house money. And then worst case Ontario, things go south, I will leave with 300. So no matter what, even if I lose, I'm walking away with an extra $100 more than I deposited. And this strategy works for me. Like, I am winning more than I'm losing by doing exactly that. There's a few little things that are important to keep in mind when you choose which wheel, because it goes beyond just 0 or double 0, because obviously 0 is better because there's less stuff to hit that you're not on. And that is, there's bonuses. So there are games where let's say the number 20 all of a sudden has a 50 multiplier, and 35 all of a sudden has a 100 multiplier. Let's say 35 hits with a 100 times multiplier on it. Most versions of that sort of roulette where there's like bonus numbers, you aren't going to get it. Even though you have that number covered, it will only multiply by whatever chips you have on that exact number. If you want better than 65% odds, you can give yourself 67% odds by simply covering the 0. And you would do this. Again, you're depositing 200, put $97 on this third, $97 on this third, and then $6 on 0. So if it lands on 0, you are then at $216. So you're only ahead $16, but you didn't, just get drained of $200. And also, let's say you do that and you're 97 hits. You're thinking, oh, well, that's, less than having 100 on each one of those spots. That's not as good of a win. How is that really going to affect this strategy? And the answer is not much, because if that happens, it hits your 97%. Now you're at $291. So let's say you do a similar size bet and you bet on these. Well, now you're at $426. $426 is less than $450, but you still have more than doubled your balance, which is the goal here, which is what we're talking about. So for me, this is the starter strategy and the closer strategy, because doing something like this, let's say you put in $200, you did this exact strategy, then you spin some slots, you play some baccarat, you play blackjack, you play a game show, and let's say you did really well. You went from 200, now you're at $1,000, and you're like, yes, this is great, this is phenomenal. But then you keep playing for a while, and you're just getting smoked, you're just getting squeezed, it's not going well, you're taking riskier bets, you're hoping you hit a big jackpot, but the blackjack hands, they just aren't coming. The dealer's pulling a 20, pulling a 21, and it is just a disaster. And you're mad because you could have cashed out at 1,000, but now you're back to 200, and you're like, oh my god, I should have cashed out at 300. Then I would have at least been ahead something. Then this would have been at least worth something. I've felt that so many times. And then I implemented this strategy. Then I made a 67% bet and hit, and at least left ahead either $100 or $250. Normally, if I do this and I get to 450, which happened to me many times, gotten tilted, which that's what I like about this strategy, is you can implement it and be totally tilted. Now again, you have to be quick because they give you very little time to place your bet on these roulette games. If I do that and I get to 450, then I'm probably betting the 50. Then I'll probably put the 50 on like even or odd. People have theories about roulette being rigged. Oh, the dealer can control where he hits the numbers, or more realistically, the dealer can control and throw it and have the ball land in a specific set of numbers. That's mostly true if the wheel is really old and the dealer is really used to that wheel, which would happen at a physical casino. That's so much less likely in a online casino. Less likely because they cycle dealers very often. So you're not going to run into that problem online. I also like to do a wanted buy, a minimum wanted buy, because that's $40 for the dual bonus, which is a fun bonus. It rarely ever hits, but when it does, it's fantastic. My strategy is not for the person who just wants to have fun, who's just loaded, has tons of money. It means nothing whether they win or lose. They just want to play and get the big burst of dopamine. They're going for the biggest dopamine rush they can possibly get. Yeah, then bet 50-50. Throw it all on Baccarat. Play blackjack. Do this or that. But that doesn't even matter to you. You're not implementing strategy anyway. You don't really care. My video is for the experienced gambler who just maybe hasn't really thought about the bets that they could be making and the bets that they should be making. Because what I'm describing here, you don't have to be any kind of mathematician. You don't have to have taken the amount of math courses that I have to come to this conclusion. This, to me, is incredibly obvious. So it blows my mind when experienced gamblers and dealers at casinos say this crap, blackjack's your best odds in a casino, that they don't get called out because they are objectively wrong. Because people make hyper aggressive bets in blackjack. The amount of times, I haven't even played that much blackjack at a physical casino, but when I have, the amount of times where like a player gets mad and has to go to the ATM, it happens every single time. And sometimes those players will do that several times because they went all in and they got boned. And they're playing blackjack incorrectly, suboptimally. So realistically, they have like a 40% chance to win. That's insane because you can play roulette and have a 67% chance to win. The difference is astounding when you think about it. These streamers, these gambling streamers you've seen play blackjack, or you yourself have played blackjack. Think about the times you've all in and you didn't even have the money to double or split. Cucking your strategy to oblivion and giving yourself about a 40% chance to get ahead. You've done it. I've done it. I've seen almost every gambling content creator do it. But the same content creators will say, you gotta play by the book, and this is like the best odds, or a Baccarat's the best odds. No, it's not. It is absolutely not. And I don't know why no one ever talks about roulette